Erik, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you and I have kind of recently met, but you get to work in an area that I'm super passionate about, and that's obviously commercial real estate, but also some strategies for developing a legacy and exit strategy for commercial real estate. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
All
like,
right.
How did you get interested in commercial real estate?
Yeah, so I have a little bit different background than maybe some people in real estate. I grew up in Michigan, and I played hockey my entire life. I went to Notre Dame, played hockey there, ended up playing for a few teams in the NHL, played about almost 800 games professionally, half in the NHL, half in the minors. And
that is so cool.
Yeah, thank you. And
where are your bruises? You have teeth.
Well, they're all fake.
Are they?
I took a slap shot right here from Andy Green, and so funny story. I took a slap shot. I was in Ottawa, and then TSN, which is like the ESPN there. They showed my tooth flying through the air as it was flying out of my mouth, and so that was the highlight of the day. The next morning on the TSN.
Oh, that's not hysterical. That's I was just kidding.
Yeah,
but
I know that. I have a big
thing.
scar here. This was a skate right across my eye when I was in high school. I wasn't wearing a face mask, and I took a goalie skate across there. So yeah, some bumps and bruises for sure.
Oh my gosh, it sounds really terrible.
It's all good.
Did you love playing hockey?
I loved it, yeah. I was in Ottawa, Tampa, Dallas. I kind of grew up in the Ottawa organization, played in the minors there, and then grew up in that. So that was a blast. Ended my career in Colorado, and kind of COVID crushed my career.
Really?
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, it was kind of at the end, and then hockey wasn't playing for a while because of COVID.
Okay.
And so I had 3 young kids, and I was traveling all over. I was in 5 cities in my last 5 years, and it was time to be done. But I actually stepped right into like a player development role for the Chicago Blackhawks, which is funny. I'm wearing this.
That's cool.
It's fun to see some of my. Yeah, they're not doing
Swag.
so great, but we have a lot of young prospects that I worked with that now they were playing in college and now they're in the NHL. So the last few nights it's been fun watching some of those players play. With that role, I was traveling, almost every weekend from September till April, and I have a 10, 8, and 6-year-old, and it just. I wanted to see my kids grow up a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And so while I was playing, I kind of backed into real estate a little bit. I started buying houses where I played or where I was from. I bought one for a summer house in Michigan. I bought a house here because we were living here in the summer in Minnesota. Bought one in Tampa, and then I bought another one here. So I had some rental properties that I kind of backed into. I lived in them, and then I moved. I'd never sold them. It's like, oh, this is interesting. And they're paying down my mortgage, and they're appreciating. So that's kind of how I backed into it. A buddy of mine in college, maybe 10 years ago, 9 years ago now, I bought a house in South Minneapolis that was kind of at the studs and got to finish it. And the company that built it, I was just chatting with them. I'm like, all right, so you guys aren't building this. What happened? He's like, well, an investor bought this, and we're building it, and now we're selling it. And I was like, well, he's probably making some money. Like, yeah, he's making good money. And I'm like, well, would you like to do that with me? And so me and a partner started doing some spec homes around the Twin Cities, kind of South Minneapolis. We did a couple in Plymouth. And so that's kind of how I got into real estate.
Okay, so what I want to know, rolling it back a little, is how you got into Minnesota. My guess is there's a girl involved.
Yeah, there's obviously a girl involved. She is actually surprisingly not from Minnesota.
Okay.
But we met in college. And
at Notre Dame?
At Notre Dame. My wife, Ryan, she took a job at Target headquarters, which many people do. And that's kind of what led us here.
Okay.
And so I would live with her in the summer, and then I would go play, and she would stay here and work for Target.
Got it.
And after about 3 years of that, long distance it's tough. We made it work, and then I signed a nice deal in Ottawa, and then she started moving with me.
Okay.
And we went back to Michigan for a couple of years, but we loved it here more. We have a bunch of college friends. She had some work friends, and so came back here. It's great training in the summer. There's a lot of hockey people here. So, we made this our home.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Kind of fun. Okay, so back to work.
Yes. So I was doing some of those spec homes, and so COVID hit, and I was in Colorado, not much to do, not knowing what was going on with my career, and so I got my, residential real estate license, essentially, because we had some rentals that I was thinking about selling during COVID, and so I figured I'd do it myself.
So you got your license in Minnesota or in Colorado?
In Minnesota.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I was studying and did it here in Minnesota.
Okay.
And then as I was working for the Blackhawks for the last 4 years, I just, I was doing some things on the side with my license. And when I wanted to make the transition to see my family more, I didn't really want to be showing homes on the weekends, essentially, because, again, then you're gone, right?
Right.
And I want to spend that time with my family. So started chatting with everybody in commercial real estate I knew in the Twin Cities, and I looked into brokerage. I looked into, development and the principal side of things. And what I was really looking for was, a culture fit, a commitment to me and a commitment to them, and then the competitiveness, right? Same things you look at building a team. My last 4 years with the Blackhawks, it was like, all right, how can we build elite teams? How can we make elite players? And so as I was making that transition, that's what I was looking for.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into that just for a minute. What are your secret sauce for building elite teams? I mean, that's pretty powerful. That's a powerful sentence.
You gotta have everyone believing in it and knowing that their role makes a big impact to the greater good. And so, within hockey, can you take someone's skill set, put them in the right role, and whether that's in the first line or the fourth line, and have them believe that, like, whatever their role is, it's going to help us win, or it's help us be better. And so it's funny when you move into business, it's a lot of the same. There's some people in businesses that just show up to work and they do their job because they don't know what they're doing is, working towards something better. And so I feel like with Schafer Richardson, we can talk about how that role came about, but helping that and those skills transition into business just as they do in elite teams in hockey.
Wow, because even in sales, just kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, and it's sometimes you kind of get on a roll on your own little path, but making sure everyone around you understands how important they are to the ultimate objective, and even understanding what the objective is.
Yeah, you've built teams, you build a whole company, and so the people below you have to know that, you can't just, as the head of that, you can't just go by yourself.
Right.
You got to build the people below you,
right,
and know that they're working towards, your company, but they're also working towards building themselves up as well.
Huh. Boy, that really is kind of setting in. That's really powerful. Yeah. Okay, so you're talking to all these commercial real estate people, yes, and you're trying to figure out, what's a good fit, and you end up
with Schafer Richardson. Yeah. So I met actually a guy I played with in college, Tom Swatsky, who's now at Mortensen. He was at acquisitions guy at Schafer Richardson. He was at Excelsior Group before that, and he just moved over to Schafer Richardson when I was chatting with him. And he's like, well, let me get my feet wet, and then I'll introduce you to Evan. And so as I'm making these connections, I met Evan. And again, it was just that fit that
Evan Richardson.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it was that fit that I was looking for. That it was, the culture I was looking for. I knew they were on a good path. They had built things over the last 30 years to a certain point, and now they're in growth mode and really trying to take it to the next level. And so that was something that excited me. And so it was funny because actually when I was working for the Hawks, I'd travel on the weekends, but I was kind of around during the weekdays. So I could spend time with my wife, or I could watch film, or I could do things at home. And so I started coming into Schafer once a week, see if it was a good fit, see if I liked the culture, see if there was a role for me. And so I did that for about 6 months. And then at the end of that, it was either, go back and work for the Hawks. They offered me a new 3-year deal, or, I was going to join Schafer Richardson, which I was excited about. And we made it work.
I just think it's so cool. You're like, when I was working for the Blackhawks, how many people can say that? Yes. As a little skater in Michigan, isn't it cool that you can, what your journey has just been so cool,
for
right?
For sure. Yeah, it's amazing. And being in Edina, it is a very heavy hockey city. Minnesota is a hockey state, and I thought it was intense in Michigan, but it is very intense here. So having that background of, I wasn't the best player at the age of 10. I wasn't the best player at the age of 13. So having that experience and being able to talk to some of the Edina intense parents has been nice as well, because it's not a race to that. It's a long-term game, and not everyone's going to make it to the NHL, and I was lucky enough to do that.
And even that and your competitive nature and just like looking at the long-term gain, I mean, translates to real estate as well, right?
Sure, yeah. It is a long-term game. And sometimes, when you're in pro sports, like you need to win the next game. And so you're so focused on it and the change happens quick. To your point, real estate is a long game. So sometimes that's a tough for me is like, I realize, all right, what you do today may pay off in a year. Or in 2 years.
Or 10 years.
Or 10 years, yeah. Or like the longer you hold things, the more it appreciates. And that's what I love about it. We were talking about our development team and Claire and how she's gone on her own. But, she had projects and 5 years later they come to fruition. And so you got to have that long-term mindset.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're kind of sitting there hanging out on the weekdays at Schafer, and what was it about Schafer that felt like, I mean, you had a lot of options, clearly.
Yep, I had a lot of people I was talking to. What I liked about it, one thing is, what assets could I bring? Well, I can talk to anybody. I don't know a ton about real estate. I've done my own things, but not on the commercial side. Evan Richardson was willing to be like a mentor to me, and he's been unbelievable, helping me through that transition. But also, I didn't want to be, and there's a lot of guys that do this, go around and ask your buddies for money. All right, let's hire this hockey guy. He can raise a bunch of money for us. And I didn't have the experience to have the confidence to go do that. And I wanted to build myself up and have the knowledge before I did something like that. And so what I loved about what Schafer was doing on the REIT side of the business, and we could talk a little bit about that, was I was selling a problem that could be solved. Yeah. So you're raising money, but you're also solving issues for people. And so that's what I love. I was passionate about helping people out and also raising money and building the fund up.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing.
Let's do it.
All right. So tell me what you're doing.
Okay. So Schafer Richardson, maybe I'll back up, and Brad has been on this, so maybe he chatted a little bit about this. It's a 30-year-old company. Brad and Kit were Brad Schafer and Kit Richardson were brokers, and they started doing some value-add stuff, some really cool stuff in the North Loop and Northeast, and you'll see our signs everywhere in those areas, and it's a cool hipster, and they were buying stuff before it was cool and hipster. As it sits today, we have a multifamily development and affordable housing development part of our business, and that's kind of separate, and that's about half of what we do. And the other half, about 10 years ago when Evan came back, he was a broker for a little bit. When he came back, he started with Brad this private REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. And what that fund is, it's $500 million of all asset classes, a big diversified fund in the upper Midwest. And what it really focuses on is this generational transfer of wealth, and in a tax efficient way. How can someone go from owning 3 or 4 buildings? Most of our clients are between the age of 60 and 85, and they've owned real estate forever. And if they sold it, they'd have a huge capital gains. And either their kids don't want to take it over, or one kid wants to run it and the other 2 want their cash. And so there's this problem, and where do they want to be? They want to be in Florida, they want to be in Arizona, they want to be spending time with grandkids or golfing, and they don't want to be managing buildings anymore or managing the farm. And so they've come up with this nice vehicle for them to go off of active management into passive management and passive income in a great tax efficient way. Yeah.
So the REIT invests in commercial real estate.
Correct.
Okay. So we'll talk about that piece in a minute.
Yep.
The part that's interesting. So let's just if I can paint a picture of the REIT, it's a diversified fund that's professionally managed. Correct.
Yep.
So
the investors own the REIT, and they hire Schafer
and
Richardson.
Shares of the REIT.
Shares of the
shares,
REIT. Yep.
Right.
And so they hire Schafer Richardson to run the REIT.
Okay.
We asset manage it. We property manage a lot of the things, and we manage the bigger fund.
Okay. And so I own 3 shopping centers, let's say.
Yep.
And I've been running them since, the 70s.
Yep.
And I am tired of the calls that the roof is leaking.
Exactly.
And I also have 3 kids and my partner. And if I sell, I have to sell in the same entity.
Yes.
And exchange into some. So how is this different from me being able to just sell and pay taxes or sell and exchange into another asset?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you could sell. There's two real ways you could contribute to us. If we liked your real estate, say we liked your 3 shopping centers, you could do what's called a direct UPREIT. So you could contribute your 3 shopping centers to the REIT. And now they're part of our 50 assets we have in the REIT. Now we have 53. And so what we would do is pay you in a big stack of shares of our REIT. That's a tax-deferred event. You haven't paid any taxes. And now you have this big stack of shares of this bigger fund. And you're getting your dividends off of that. You get your appreciation off of that big fund. And what's really helpful, so we've solved your lifestyle issue. You don't have to manage anymore. We solved your tax issue. You didn't pay the tax on that. You've deferred it. And what really ends up being one of the biggest things for our investors is this estate planning. So now you have this big stack of shares. You have 3 kids. Well, you can divide those shares evenly between the 3 kids, or you go, 50, 40, 10, because you didn't really like this kid. You can divide it however you want. And so you'll get the dividends off of that big fund. And then when you die, you essentially, like, what do we say in real estate? You defer till you die, right?
Right,
'Cause
right.
You never want to pay that
Usually,
tax.
yeah.
So when you die, the kids will get that step up in basis. They never have to pay the tax on that. And then they can just be separate and divide their shares, and they can stay in, they can pull some out, they can kind of do whatever they want.
And Timmy and Joey can do it on their own
Separate
timeline.
things.
They don't have to consult with each
Exactly,
other.
exactly.
They can still be friends.
And so, we talked with a lot of families, the second generation, that have dealt with some of these issues before, and now they're passing to the third generation where we don't want our kids to deal with the BS that we've had to deal with.
That's
over the
really
past.
interesting, yeah.
And so that's a direct contribution.
Okay.
That is a hard thing to do, because I got to like your real estate
Yeah.
in the fund. You got to like our fund, and then we got to come up with a price.
Yeah.
right?
I've got to trust that you'll give me the right price.
Yeah,
and value.
but we're conservative buyers. You also don't want us to overpay because you're getting into our fund. So sometimes it works, and we do a few of those a year. But what we do more of now is we use this 2-step process where we don't like your real estate.
Or it's not a good fit.
It's not a good fit for a fund. Yeah, it could be great real estate.
Agreed.
You
Yeah.
could have a farm. You could have, a small multifamily. It could be great real estate, but it's not what our fund wants to do going
Right.
forward. It's not what we want to own. So what we do is with our cash in the REIT, we'll go buy an asset we want to own. We just bought a 400,000 square foot industrial building in Omaha last year. And so that's something we want to own. We buy it at half replacement cost, under market rents, kind of our strategy going forward. So what we do with that is we stick it into these DSTs, which is a Delaware statutory trust. And I could talk about that in a second. But so we'll stick in this DST. And so people who used to do this used to do TICs, and TICs are a bit of a nightmare. And so a lot of people who are doing TICs now use these DSTs it's just a trust that can own income generating properties and is allowed for 1031 money. It's eligible for 1031 money to invest in. And so it's almost like you're buying a stock, so it's very easy. So say you would go sell your 3 shopping centers, or one at a time, right? That's the best part about a DST is you can invest one at a time, you can invest the whole thing. So someone else goes and buys your shopping centers. Well, we have this big industrial building in Omaha waiting for you that has $15 million of equity that needs to be filled. So say, you end up with $3 million of equity, you can 1031 now, use a 1031 to invest in this property. So the 1031, you've deferred your tax. And why we use this 2-step, why we use this DST is for you, if you were to sell and try to get it into our REIT, because that's where you really want to be, is you want to be diversified. You want to have a big stack of shares you can divide up. You can't 1031 to our REIT because it's a partnership. You have to 1031 into real property. So that's why we use this DST structure. So we've bought the big industrial building, we've stuck in this DST. Now you go sell, you invest your $3 million of equity into this DST. And, Sandy sold her farm down in Omaha, so she invested her $2 million. Marty sold his, 3-unit building down in Des Moines, and so he invests in there. Someone else was in a partnership, and so that whole partnership has come in. So we have 8 to 10 investors in this one DST. And for a 1031 to be eligible, you have to invest for an investment intent. And so you and the other investors will stay in this DST. You'll get your dividends off of it for 2 years. Because there's a private letter ruling with the IRS that says, hey, if you've stayed in for 2 years, you're probably okay. Okay, so you've gotten your dividends off of that, your equity. At that 2-year point, we'll come back, the REIT will come back and say, hey, listen, we want to do that 721 up REIT. We want to do that exchange where you investors will contribute it. Now you're part of the bigger fund, and now we're giving you the stack of shares.
So you're contributing the asset.
DST.
But the DST is the owner of that asset. In this example of the industrial building.
Right. So the investors are contributing that industrial building back into the fund. So now it's one of our 55 assets, and now we're paying you with a stack of shares. So say you're $3 million. Now you have $3 million of equity, and you own a tiny portion of our bigger fund.
And while it's just in its freestanding DST
Yes.
or that building, you're professionally managing that as well.
Yep.
You're acquiring it. You're professionally
At that
managing
point,
it.
you're
It's an
hands-on.
asset that you are looking to. I mean, that's a fit for your for a long-term ownership,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. We want to own that asset for a long time. And at that point, once you've done your 1031, you're totally passive. You're just collecting mailbox money.
Yeah, I mean, I have worked with so many families that have fallen apart after the patriarch passed away because of arguments over dollars, and I am such a firm believer as this is one of a few different strategies for doing this, but it's knowing the quality behind the people doing it is really important.
Yeah,
so
there's some bigger firms, national firms that do it, that sell it through, broker dealers that sell it through Merrill Lynch. And so we're a family-run firm out of Minneapolis. And so people, they latch onto that. They want to know, they want to go see their assets. They want to have coffee with me or Evan or Brad. And so we're doing it on a little bit of smaller scale. But I think, owners who have run their things, especially in upper Midwest areas, they like to know the people they're investing with. They like to see what they're investing in. And so that's where we try and play, is some of that area.
Yeah. And what a fun thing for you to go out and meet with all these owners and just say, have you thought of this?
Yeah, it's a blast. Like I said, it gives me, I get excited about it because we're solving a problem for them and for their family. And so it's easy for me to talk to them about it. And it's an easy conversation. Like, how can we help you?
It's, our industry is a lot of, putting deals together where there's a kind of a fight between completely different, I want to make as much, you want to pay as, I want you to pay the most, you pay the little, whether it's a lease or an acquisition or what have you. But this is something that is just like it's a real feel good. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because I love helping people. So this feels like, rather than that tug and war of trying to bring people together that have completely different interests, this is a feel-good solution.
For sure. And you see the baby boomers who are aging out of wanting to run real estate, right? Like this whole transfer of wealth we've talked about, and we're kind of at the beginning of that. In the next 10 years, there's $80 trillion of money that's going to get passed from the baby boomers to the next generation.
Really?
A lot of that is real estate.
Really?
Yeah. And so this is only going to get more prevalent.
Yeah.
It's only going to get bigger, and people, we're trying to give solutions to certain people that it could work for.
Yeah, I think it's great. Okay, so it's hard to buy real estate.
Yes.
So how does Schafer go about finding assets to add to the portfolio?
Yeah. We use brokers all the time. We have close relationship. We try and build relationship with brokers, and so if things come about or they know something may be coming, they tell us. Happy to. We are not the highest bidder most of the time. We bid on a ton of real estate, but we're a conservative buyer for our investors. And so as much as we'd like to buy some of the national product, we just don't like to overpay for it, especially with the rates how they are today.
Right.
And so where we kind of play is, above the individual high net worth person that can buy it and below the institutions, right? Good quality real estate on, A&A corner, that has a little scratch and dent that's under market rents.
Yeah, interesting. And you talked about, especially where rates are today, how leveraged are your assets?
Yeah, so we are at about 55% loan to value.
Great, so you can weather some storms.
Yeah, weather some storms. And this is, on our multifamily, we're trying to hit for home runs, right? A little bit higher risk, but a little bit higher return. Here we say we're hitting singles. You know, we buy quality assets, stable assets that we're not over levered. And so, you know, wealth preservation. A lot of our investors have made a lot of money through appreciation of their real estate, through their businesses, and they don't want to lose it. And so that's our number one goal in this fund is like, don't lose anyone's money.
Yeah.
Because they've worked so hard to gain it. And so you don't get as high of a return, but you're still investing in real estate. You still get the depreciation aspect of it. And we're just trying to slowly grow that fund.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so how long have you been with Schafer Richardson?
Almost a year now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
wow.
I would say that transition, and we haven't talked about that at all. Being in hockey and playing hockey for 37 years of my life.
Wow, you look like a baby.
And then all of a sudden you just transition.
I think of you as like a young man, but you're young to me, but like you've been doing it a long time.
A lot of days I feel young, and with young kids, a lot of days I feel old.
Well, and with your injuries, I mean, oh my gosh,
backs and knees.
I can't imagine. Okay.
I can play with my kids now. That's all I cared about. I didn't have too many concussions, and I could play with my kids.
That's awesome.
But that transition was hard for me. I mean, going from knowing one thing, and you got to kind of be humbled where it's like, hey, you're not the best at this. And so I think that was a challenge for me, but I enjoyed that challenge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that is. I mean, whenever you try something new, like,
yes.
But you really were celebrated. I mean, and compensated and
yes.
like recruited and I mean, applauded, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then you've made good money and you've done one thing, and now you're moving on from that, and it's like the whole world is open to you. You can do anything really because you're starting at zero, but that's also hard. And so I was excited about real estate and passionate about that, and just finding someone that's willing to put some time and effort into you and sees the long-term, gains that they could have.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
what are having come from such different worlds?
Yes.
What is the most eye-opening, to you as far as kind of the business world versus the sports business world?
Yeah, I think it's, when you're playing sports, you're with elite people, and you're all working towards the same thing, right? And when I started working for a professional team, you turn, you pull back the curtain, and because you didn't know much about business, or because you didn't know much about running a team or whatever, you think everyone has it all figured out. And that's not the case, right? You pull back the curtain a little bit, like, okay, things can be more efficient here. Or, we talk to a lot of CPAs, and we talk to a lot of estate planners. We talk to a lot of wealth advisors who have clients that we could help. And so sometimes you get nervous about, does this guy know a lot more than me? And really, people know what they know, but no one's a genius,
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest thing. I was very nervous, having been so focused. You have to be laser focused on hockey. You kind of leave the outside world, away. But you can learn your craft pretty quickly as long as you're smart and you put the time and effort into it. And nobody has all the answers in the world. And so that's kind of what I've realized a little bit.
I think that's like a big isolating myth just in general in the world, is that we just all feel kind of so, I don't know, it's that imposter syndrome or whatever, but we do think other people have things figured out, and none of us have anything figured out.
It's like families. You think yours is the worst, but then you talk to somebody else, and he's got way more problems than I. Everyone's dealing with the same stuff, right? And the financial advisors, they know a lot about these things, but they don't know a ton about real estate.
They really don't, shockingly so, right?
And so me knowing a year learning and, being mentored, it's nice to go in and someone like, hey, I have an answer for you. Have you thought about this? And even the people in real estate that I've talked to, not a lot of them knew about this strategy at all. And that's the cool thing about real estate is like, hey, we have a little niche strategy that can help a lot of people. And so it's fun for me to educate people on something that they don't know.
Yeah, and I think you and I have talked about this, but like if anybody out there wants like you or I to talk about the different strategies for exiting real estate, we're for hire.
For sure.
And we're pretty cheap.
Yeah, 100%.
We both feel so passionate about making sure that families and partnerships and people don't fall apart because of money and bad planning.
Yes.
I mean, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you let your kids play hockey?
I do.
Yeah.
Of course. Yep. They all play all the sports though. Hockey, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, everything. But yeah, I do let them.
Do you have boys and girls?
Boy, girl, boy.
Okay.
My girl is as girly as they come. Gymnastics and dance and all those things.
But she still plays hockey.
She does not.
Okay.
No. We tried it. I did like 6 learn to skate. She cried every one. But I'm a very big commitment guy. So I'm like, hey, we committed to 6 weeks. So she cried for 6 weeks straight, and then we haven't played hockey again. She can skate. My boys won't be happy about this, but if she tried, she'd probably be the best skater. But she just doesn't like it. She's very athletic.
My daughter was kind of the same way. She was, my son played hockey in Edina, and he was a good player, but also such an even keel human that he was a good player, and he just was a great leader and a great part of the team. But she was always the better skater, at least starting out early on. Yeah. And I mean, you couldn't get her to put a hockey stick in her hand, and I think she would have liked it older.
Yeah.
But like, it's such a crazy world that we expect people to if you're not like by 6, you're not like.
You hear that all the time. Oh, you started at 6, you're way behind.
Yeah, I mean that's just dumb.
No, yeah, and if your kids are athletic, there's a thing called puberty that happens, and so when the 5'6" dad and the 5'2" mom want their kids in the NHL or something, there's a big road, and they're the best at 10. At 13 or 14, when the boys grow, things change pretty quick.
Yeah, I think parents kind of need to get out of the way and let kids just play.
Yes.
But I do think we all are trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up. And like the opportunities, it's scary to look at.
For sure.
But I've got a lot of people in kind of our stage of life that kind of are like, okay, maybe the sky's the limit. I need to figure out what I want to be. And and it's okay to not have all the answers all the time.
For sure. Yeah, in college, I tore my ACL my junior year, and I was actually pre-med at Notre Dame, and I wanted to play. Obviously my goal was to play in the NHL, but when you have a big injury like that, you have no idea. And so that summer, I studied for the MCATs, and I took the MCATs. And it's like, all right, I ended up getting drafted, and I ended up playing, but you got to try different things, and you never know what's going to work.
So just kind of focus on the day and make the best decisions for the day, and the rest falls into play.
Exactly.
And then you get to say, hey, when I was at the Blackhawks.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I lived in that world for so long, so it's it's what you're used to.
Right.
And so
it sounds sexy in my world, but but I really think that you have you're a super smart guy. You're obviously super personable, but what a fun role to be in, and what a great company you found, and
it's an interesting time. Like, as you know, commercial real estate's not all roses right now. I mean, the 1031 market was in 21 and 22 was $100 billion each year. Last year was $12 billion. So there's some struggles going on because people just don't want to sell. Like, a lot of the people we talk to, they don't want to manage their buildings anymore, and they want to be off of it, but they're not getting the prices, or the rates are changing. And so with this baby boomers aging out, we see this changing, but we're just there's a lot of change going on in the world right now.
There is a lot of change.
And so people are nervous about it. And so what they do, they just hold on.
Yeah.
Right? And so.
But I would kind of, as a final piece, I think, and I can speak personally, sometimes we make decisions based on dollars that aren't the best decisions for our families and for our lives. And it's really, there's a lot of pressure to chase the dollar and not chase what's best for you and your family. Yeah. And boy, I hope to learn to do a better job of that. And
don't we all? We're all working to get better, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
But this is a tool that can really give a lot of people some peace.
Yeah, for sure. And we see, the the matriarchs or patriarchs of the family that have been in real estate are in different partnerships, and the wife or the husband doesn't know where all their real estate money is. And then the kids definitely don't know where it's all at. And so this is just an easy way to clean all of that up. There's different strategies you can have. And it's like, why not make it easier just in case something does happen in your life?
Just
right?
have it set
That's
up.
why you have insurance, in case something does happen.
Yeah.
So why not do something like this in case something does happen where your kids aren't left with 3 buildings that it's the wrong time to sell, or they're fighting over it, or,
Yeah.
you know, we've helped a lot of families, and it's nice when, you know, mom or the kids are like, thank you. That really feels good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Lisa.
joining
Yeah,
me
appreciate
today.
it.
I just really enjoy your company and think you're an awesome human, and I appreciate you taking this time.
Well, thanks for doing this. It's a fun thing to be a part of.